Bach's earliest survived cantata date all the way back to 1707, a work which he performed on Easter as part of his application to a church position in Mühlhausen. Later on, he composed several cantatas while he was working as the court musician in Weimar. But most of his cantatas were produced during his first years in Leipzig, starting in 1723. Bach composed more than 1,000 works throughout his life, and among them about 200 cantatas came down to us. And here we are at the Bach-Archiv in Leipzig, and in the library they own the manuscript to all the chorale cantatas and some of the most important documents written during Bach's lifetime. Join me now as we visit the library at the Bach-Archiv in Leipzig. Today, I will be meeting with Dr. Manuel Bärwald, a Bach scholar and researcher at the Bach-Archiv in Leipzig, and together we will be looking at some original manuscripts of Bach's cantatas. I have many questions to ask him, and the first one would be, how did Bach manage to compose and perform a new cantata each week?
For every week he composed a new cantata, so we have to imagine when he came back from church service on Sunday, he sat down at his desk and wrote down, started composing a new cantata, which maybe took him until Tuesday, and at the latest, I think on Wednesday, the performance parts had to be produced because these pieces had to be rehearsed, and on Sunday there was the next performance. So,
but also wondering, would it be the case that maybe there were several cantatas, the several projects going on at the same time? Would it be possible?
I don't think this is possible, especially for the chorale cantata cycle, because there was, as far as we see, no time to compose cantatas ahead because the schedule was so tight. With
Bach's hectic schedule and having to produce a new cantata every week, how did he keep up with the pace? And, does he always write his own music, or we imagine that he would have some help with copying out the parts from the full score and all that?
Well, he had the assistance of experienced boys from the St. Thomas Boys Choir who assisted him copying out the performance parts. This is a cantata for the first Sunday in Advent, composed within the chorale cantata cycle in 1724, Nun komm der Heiden Heiland.
So this is the original manuscript. This is Bach's handwriting? Do we know?
No, it's not Bach's handwriting. So the performance parts that were used in 1724 for the first performance in the Leipzig churches. And, well, we can look into this manuscript. Yes,
so who is the copyist for this one?
His name is Johann Andreas Kuhnau.
Not the Kuhnau, not the predecessor of Bach.
No, it's a nephew of him. He was in the choir and he did a very good job. He has a very clean, big, clear handwriting.
Right.
It's very easy to differentiate his handwriting from Bach's handwriting. And there's another copyist. His name is Christian Gottlob Meissner. Easy see it from the C clef here, which is completely different to this C clef written by Meissner.
The chorus part was written by Kuhnau.
Yes, completely.
And then the recitative was written by Meissner.
Yes. And yes, until the 1940s, 50s, people think this is Bach's handwriting because Meissner tried to write like Bach. This chorale cantata was reperformed in Leipzig. And we know this, an additional violone part. And this is actually written by Johann Sebastian Bach himself. We know that it is from the 1730s because it was written of another kind of paper than all the rest of the manuscript. Paper dealers from different paper mills, and they have different watermarks. So the older manuscripts from the year 1724 have a moon, and here in this manuscript you can see an M and an A medium size, which Bach only used in the early 1730s, so around 1732. It's here, and it's very hard to see when you go against the light. Well, we have to put it on our screen and then we can see it better. And what is also an indication is Bach's handwriting has changed from during his lifetime, and also from the 1720s to the 1730s and the 1740s. We will see this in other manuscripts, how thick and clumsy his handwriting gets in the later years.
Besides Kuhnau and Meissner, who else helped Bach to copy this music? Did his wife or perhaps his children help him?
Sometimes. So we talked about the reperformance in the 1730s of this
Yes.
cantata. At this time, Bach didn't have these main copyists available, because he didn't compose a new cantata every week, so there was no need to have copyists for constant copying of his music. As you can see here, the scribe changes. This is Johann Sebastian
Yes.
Bach, and this is another copyist. You can easily see this from
clef.
the basso clef, and also the adagio is added by Bach himself, as well as the piano and the forte, but the music was written by someone else, and it is his wife Anna Magdalena. She often did copy work for Bach. For example, she wrote a copy of the violin sonatas, of the violin solos, and the cello suites, and one of Bach's private students who owned such a copy added to the title page the information that this manuscript was written by Anna Magdalena Bach. And
So in comparison, so when we compare that, the manuscript of the cello suite, and we compare to the handwriting here, and we know that this for sure was copied by Anna Magdalena.
Yes. This is an autograph by Bach. It's the compositional autograph of Cantata 135.
So how do we know that this was written by Bach now and not his students or not by Anna Magdalena?
We know it by comparison of his handwriting. So what we have prepared here is a letter or a recommendation letter Bach wrote for one of his students, Johann Christoph Alt-Nicol. And so we see Bach signed this letter. It's an autographed piece of paper.
Right. Famous Bach signature.
Yes. And so, for example, if we compare the letter A of Ach, Herr, mich armen Sünder, and the A of Alt-Nicol, it's very much the same. And
1724 is exactly 200 years after the publication of the first Lutheran hymnals. It was also Bach's second year in Leipzig, when his cantatas were composed based on the melody and text of pre-existing Lutheran hymns, also known as chorales. The complete original performance parts of these chorale cantatas are still kept in Leipzig today.
This cycle was the most successful cycle Bach composed in Leipzig. I guess because he was dealing with these familiar melodies, these church hymns, everybody knew. The people liked to hear these pieces, so familiar melodies combined with Bach's sophisticated art of composing. We have several hints that Bach performed this cycle not only in 1724, 1725 when the cycle was composed, but also in the 1730s and 40s again and again, maybe 3 or 4 times. I'm quite sure that it was not by accident that Anna Magdalena took the original performing parts of this cycle and gave it as a gift to the St. Thomas School, because that was the cycle even the boys from St. Thomas School liked much more than all the other cantatas.
How do we know that?
Yeah, because we have these many hints that these pieces were re-performed during Bach's lifetime
And even
many
after his
times.
death.
And even after his death, that's right. You know that Bach's successor, Gottlob Harrer, in his first years of his cantorate, performed not music by Bach anymore. Pieces by Telemann, by Harrer himself, many Italian music. But he died in 1755, Harrer. And it took the city 6 months to find a new Thomas cantor. And during this interim, the prefect of the choir was in fact Thomas cantor. And look what he has done.
Chorale
he
cantatas.
re-performed the chorale cantata cycle. And that is not only because they had the original performing parts in their library, they had many music in the library. But I'm quite sure that the boys from St. Thomas Choir and even the Leipzig congregation had a very special relationship to these cantatas. In 1736, this anonymous person visited several places in central Germany, several courts, and also a city. And this city is described as the most important university city in central Germany. And then the guy is talking about the musicians there. And in the last sentences of this part of the report, he is saying, yeah, and there's the head of the musicians in this university town, and he could be the best musician in Germany and in the world if his works are not against nature and turgid. So he's explaining that this composer is able to play amazingly quick and sophisticated on the organ, but he thinks that his singers are able to sing what he is playing on the organ. But this is impossible. That's what the guy is saying. And therefore, his cantatas are not natural, they are turgid, bad in style, so in other words, rubbish. And he is obviously talking about J.S. Bach.
In the next episode, we will take a trip to Köthen, the city where Bach worked prior to his position in Leipzig. We will visit the castle, the court chapel, and the magnificent chamber where Bach premiered many of his virtuosic instrumental works. We will also take the secret staircase which leads us directly to Prince Leopold and his family. If you have not done so, please be sure to subscribe to Bachfest Malaysia's YouTube channel and Facebook page so that you won't be missing out on the next episode. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next time on Encountering Bach.